Hello, we are
Nasrin Mostofian
and Anna Foka. We are two of the 7 members of the project Digital Perigesis. This presentation outlines the initial work of the Digital Perigesis project, which is using semantic annotation to capture, organize, visualize, and analyze the spatial form of Pausanias' narrative and their forms of space within the narrative. In particular, our presentation discusses the challenges and affordances of using geoparsing, spatiotemporal analysis, network analysis, and linked open data, otherwise LOD, for rethinking the geographies of a non-modern literary text as based more on topological connection than topographic proximity. Over the last decade or so, work within the discipline of geographic information science has aimed at interrogating, with increasing complexity and nuance, non-Cartesian worldviews of historical texts in ways that can grasp and enable analysis of their inherent subjectivity and uncertainty. For Trevor Harris, Susan Bergeron, and Jesse Roos, GIS in the humanities is better thought of not as a system, but a science. It is necessary to think more broadly in terms of geographic information sciences and the concepts that surround the term, rather than such a heavy focus on the GIS as system. It is in the arena of geographic information science that the more substantive intellectual engagement and reciprocity between geography, GIS, and the humanities will emerge. Related work in the geospatial semantics community has been contributing methods, ontologies, use cases, and data sets to the development of the semantic web, leading to attempts to enable the retrieval, integration, and analysis of LOD within the GIS platforms. Potentially, linked open data could provide a powerful means of enabling research in the humanities and social sciences, precisely because of the importance of place both as a locus for exploring human activity, particularly as contested terrain of competing definitions, and as a linking mechanism for semantic web technologies.
Nevertheless, the process of negotiating the spatial footprint of people, monuments, and time in Pausanias by contemporary means raises a number of fundamental epistemological questions. What does it mean to map a non-modern literary geography? What spatial concepts are used and how do they relate to our own concepts and means of mapping them? How can the various time periods within the narrative be identified and read in relation to the places in which they are evoked? What role do people play in the representation of place? What kind of maps might emerge from a narrative that organizes spatial information in terms of relations rather than by topographic location? And how can the results be used to rethink our mental maps of antiquity? What role can LOD play in providing alternative pathways through the description of Greece? The geographic entity of the nation state of Greece today, you can see the picture on the left of your screen, is a result of the declaration of the War of Independence from the Ottoman Empire, first formally declared in 1821, with the free nation of Greece formalized in 1830 and the current constitution of the Hellenic Republic established in 1975.
Written in the 2nd century CE, Pausanias' Perigesis Elados, translated loosely as Description of Greece, provides an account of a journey through mainland Greece, south from around Delphi to include Attica, the territory of Athens, and the Peloponnese, as shown in the picture on your right. Each of the 10 books is dedicated to a particular region, with the exception of Elis, the location of Olympia, which has 2 books dedicated to it. Its dense narrative description, however, represents a special footprint that extends far beyond mainland Greece, as a preliminary mapping of all toponyms shows. That's the picture on your right. The level of detail and granularity that Pausanias' narrative describes for Greek towns, buildings, monuments, and objects is unlike any other example to be found in the Greco-Roman literature. Pausanias' description proves highly influential as a guidebook to Greece's antiquities, precisely on the basis of its utility for the modern reader and archaeologist, as if it were an ancient Baedeker guide. At the time of its writing, Greece was simply a province within a vast, powerful, and multicultural Roman Empire. Yes, yet Pausanias' description resists unmediated access to that, or indeed to any other single Greece. Indeed, Pausanias moves through as a reader, Instead, Pausanias moves through time as well as space. As a result, the Greece that one moves through as a reader of Pausanias is mapped out not only spatially, but also temporally. The Greece of Pausanias has never existed, or rather, it is a Greece out of time, as you can see, or of many different times, whose realization is achieved only in Pausanias' text. And here you can see a preliminary description of all the toponyms and how we sort of map them, and what the actual books look like divided into volumes.
GIS, with its technological framework for gathering, managing, and analyzing data systematically, can help with the exploration of subjective geographies through the spatial representation of qualitative or fuzzy data. Text-based analysis remains a challenge since the narrative form resists easy rendering in a GIS, which in turn raises fundamental epistemological and ontological issues for historical-based digital research. The interrogation of non-Cartesian modes of geographical knowledge is particularly problematic when digital mapping applications are used that reproduce the Cartesian frame for viewing space. In spite of these issues, using GIS to analyze non-modern literary geographies is a useful means, indeed a useful provocation, to explore further issues pertaining to the textual representation of space and place, particularly regarding complexity, pluralism, and ambiguity.
Nevertheless, given these complexities, particularly relating to the identification of precise geographic locations in ancient literary works, it is no surprise that research on analyzing literary geography, and specifically geoparsing travel literature, has focused on modern literature. Examples include the Corpus of Lake District Writing project, the corpus of 80 digitized and annotated texts from 1622 and 1900s. Representing a range of genres and authors, was geoparsed using named entity recognition to identify and to differentiate geographical features. This work led to the development of a new methodology coined as geographical text analysis, GTA, which combines GIS applications with corpus linguistics and natural language processing. Two other projects have focused on mapping the literary geographies of modern urban spaces. In what? A platform has been built for retrieving and analyzing the occurrences of place names in novels published between 1800s and 1914, and whose action occurs wholly or partially in Paris.
In another, the literary palimpsest project maps literature sets in the city of Edinburgh with the aim of enabling the exploration of the dimensions of literary Edinburgh through encounters with geolocated extracts of literary works. While these projects represent cutting-edge applications of GIS for exploring literary geographies, conventional topographical-based maps may in and of themselves be insufficient for articulating how texts organize spatial information differently from a cartographic representation.
The Hestia project was experimented with using GIS for visualizing places in the 5th century BCE histories of Herodotus to identify the affordances and challenges of using contemporary technologies for representing non-cartographic spatial thinking. Yet, it found that network graphs were a better means of identifying the links or topological relations that Herodotus made between places and the peoples who represent them. Indeed, the resulting visualizations helped to draw attention to the underlying spatial structure of the narrative, in which places were mapped relationally in terms of their action and influence rather than topographic location.
In response to technical and conceptual challenges concerning contemporary GIS, the Digital Periegesis team make use of a platform which facilitates working collaboratively with an openly licensed digital text of Pausanias's description that you can see here. Developed by the Pelagius network, Recogito, an open access free to use browser based platform, enables the researchers with no specialist coding skills to annotate space in documents and pictures.
The method of semantic annotation is twofold. First, you locate the places in your online document, mark up the words, and create an annotation. Then you align or resolve these annotations to a digital authority file, a gazetteer, that provides the means to identify and disambiguate between different places. By aligning a place name record in a document to a global gazetteer, one is able not only to disambiguate that place and map it, but also to create LOD, published according to the Web Annotation Data Model. Thanks to global gazetteer initiatives such as the Pleiades and the Digital Atlas of the Roman Empire, the procedure for identifying and disambiguating ancient place information in documents in Recogito is relatively robust and can greatly assist comparison and further analysis. Yet, place coverage is not comprehensible, particularly when it comes to more granular information of the kind which Pausanias' text is particularly rich, for example, areas within cities down to individual buildings and objects in space, like statues, paintings, or even stones. Lacking these place types in the two available global gazetteers, which is Pleiades and Dare that you can see here, as I show you at the moment, severely hampered the scope of annotation work in Recogito. Therefore, the Digital Periegesis project took on hosting a local version of Recogito at Humla Batumu University to enable customization of the gazetteer suite. Using this local instance allowed us to incorporate other gazetteer-like datasets, namely topos text for places within cities and some buildings, such as districts and temples, and Judith Binder's art history gazetteer, which is a art history reference guide, and also, of course, the German Archaeological Institute's database for monuments and art historical artifacts, such as statues and paintings. Using these datasets as quasi-gazetteers enables us to annotate the place or object in space information in Pausanias at a level of granularity that far exceeds any current gazetteer. In turn, this work will both help us map and analyze the spatial information in Pausanias and prepare the ground for future work in this area of intracity gazetteer development. Even if no appropriate match can be found using any of these resources, by using the yellow flag option in Recogito and the comments box, we can provide further details which can be fed back to the gazetteer developers to ensure that important new information can be retained and utilized.
Recogito also uses name entity recognition to enable the automatic alignment of character strings to selected gazetteer entities as part of a first automated sweep of the document before each annotation is checked and verified. However, the NER, or named entity recognition, is currently restricted largely to European languages, though the plugin interface allows for development of language-specific NER, as has been done for Hebrew, with the default Stanford Core NLP for English only. Since we are using the ancient Greek text, we focus on manual annotation. In any case, we have found that Recogito's intuitive interface, which makes annotating the text a matter of interpretation, not technical know-how, slows down reading and brings to the fore conceptual issues and challenges that need to be teased out. The challenge of analyzing spatial representation in the Periegesis Helados, and the reason why we were attracted to the text in the first place, is the thickness of that description. Whether Pausanias is taking the reader on a tour of a temple precincts, stopping off along the road to take note of a statue, or recalling the mythical stories associated with a simple-looking rock. While no tool will be able to solve fundamental epistemological and ontological issues, Recogito enables the researcher to incorporate semantic modeling into the identification and analysis of spatial data that is both flexible and targeted, while at the same time being robust and consistent. A significant part of our conceptual framing of Pausanias's representation of space, for example, has been the use of free-form tags to create a folksonomy of place type. Showing a screenshot of Recogito's annotation screen gives an example of our typology with 3 case-specific tags. Our folksonomy of place identifies the following features. First, we use Recogito's place entity tab to annotate a place reference in the narrative, using a pop-up map to align it to an appropriate gazetteer entry. Then we use tags to provide a typology of place. The first tag differentiates between different genus types: the built environment, built; the physical landscape, physical; an object in space, object; and the conceptual region or territory, regional, that you can see here. A second tag provides more information, the species such as settlements or temple for built, river or sea for physical, a statue for object, and so on. So you can see, for example, in this example, we have so far built and settlement. We then use a third tag to identify the narrator's presence as a guide, either of the current topographical itinerary, pos, or of another place he has seen, opsis, that we don't have in this example.
This schema will allow different kinds of spatial analysis of the narrative, such as by type or by itinerary. For example, in the CSV export of the PAUS tags, the itinerary column assigns a sequential number to each place annotation, meaning that the annotator has made an assertion placing Pausanias at the location which he is currently describing, thereby enabling the journey through Greece to be mapped. Each subsequent untagged annotation is assigned at the same itinerary ID, so that every historical account is associated with a geographic location from which Pausanias launches at the least rhetorically that narrative excursus. Annotation of Pausanias remains an evolving process as we seek to refine our typologies for places, find ways of annotating time data, and respects Pausanias's own temporal conceptualization. The current state of tagging shows 37,752 annotations of the 3,168 canonical paragraphs of the 10 books of Pausanias, or an average of 12 annotations per paragraph. We have currently captured a number of space entities, 13,000 mentions of 3,219 places to which applied as topos text, the German Archaeological Institute or other URIs can be assigned. All but 176 of these places have a coordinate pair in one or more gazetteers and are thus mappable, if not always precisely. Some of the more interesting data may not be the known places, most of which have been or could be extracted for other purposes, but about 3,000 distinct buildings, monuments, or land features that cannot be linked to a named entity with existing gazetteers.
To move into our epistemological and technical challenges, first, we have taken similarity pragmatic steps in using Wikidata URIs so far as possible, where people are named in a list of any prosopographical LOD global resource. By using the comment box in Recogito, we can manually link the person reference to a global authority like Wikidata, which should ensure at least a degree of future proofing of our work. We anticipate doing the same with time references by aligning Pausanias's temporal descriptions with the emerging periodo LOD standard.
Geo-annotating in Recogito has raised three key interrelated points. First, reading. Digital humanities has focused on big data and distant reading. Second, visualization. The ability to place enables a narrative to be experienced spatially, the value of which extends far beyond simply mapping the text, especially concerning cultures whose spatial footprint have been altered through the course of centuries. Lastly, collaboration. The work that we have been describing here far exceeds the work of an individual scholar. When applying technology to a specific use case, it is important to involve domain experts, which this project has managed to achieve. While our research focuses on a text that is well within the classical European canon, the approach the project team takes to that text as an example of pre-Cartesian spatial representation promises to create links with other projects that aim to explore non-Western forms of spatial representation. The methodological contribution of the research is thus incremental, demonstrating innovative ways of synthesizing and using established resources, infrastructures, and approaches. Thank you so much for this. And if you're wishing to have a look at what we've been doing so far and how we've been working with the text and what we've published, please have a look at our publications and kindly contact us if you need anything more. Thank you.
Thank you.